Hello, everyone. My name is Tawana Smith. I'm the Student Hireability Navigator for Central Texas area, which includes the Region 3, and we also cover our East SC Region 12. I'm here to support you in getting more information for your students with disabilities. At the bottom of the screen, you will see my contact information where if you need any information on pre-eds, as far as pre-transition services, and contact for your vocational rehab counselor that's in your area, please feel free to shoot me an email. I will be more than happy to share that information with you. If you don't have any other questions, I will turn it over to Miss Allison.
Thanks so much for having us again, Tawana. We're always happy to be back with you. So Texas Workforce Solutions, Texas Workforce Commission, that's something that a lot of our families are working with on a pretty regular basis, whether it is through the pre-ETS, the summer earn and learn, or if it is actually through the vocational rehab program. So we're definitely glad to be back with you. I'm gonna stop my share for a second. I seem to be having a little technical difficulty. Today, we can't see you and we can't hear you, but we know you're there and we're glad that you've joined us today. Today's session is being recorded, and following today's session, you will get an email with a link to the recording. Also any attachments that we talk about, maybe like a PDF of the presentation, and also any additional attachments that might go along with this today. So we can't see you, we can't hear you, we know you're there, and we want to answer as many questions as we can as we go through this presentation today. So let me try one more time here. I think this is going to work. Let's see. Okay, I think everybody can see my screen now. So I'm Allison Schaberg, Consolidated Planning Group. If you're joining us for the first time, we're glad you're here. If you've attended some of our webinars in the past, we're glad you've come back. We put out a series of webinars really on a weekly and monthly basis surrounding kind of tips and ideas and things that you might need to know as a parent supporting kids with special needs. So today, what we're going to be talking about is college planning for special needs families. So a little bit more about Consolidated Planning Group. We are a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We work predominantly with families that have children with special needs or loved ones that will have care needs beyond the typical child rearing ages and maybe for the rest of their life. We also work with the clinicians and the agencies that serve our families as well. But I come to you as a parent of two kids with special needs. I have one that is in the process of transitioning, and then one that has already transitioned. And this subject that we're talking about today is pretty near and dear to my heart, because when we started this journey, with my older child, I would say that it was complicated. It wasn't easy. Where do we go? What do we do? How do we get the services that we need? What is the right fit? Is college a fit? So those were all some of the questions that I was kind of dealing with personally with my loved one. And we learned a lot along the way. And so we hope to share some of this information with you so that as you're going through your journey, that maybe it's a little bit easier. Some of the things that we learned right off the bat, I'm going to just tell you right off the bat, and if you haven't had kids in college before, whether special needs or not, some of the things that make this process complicated is that basically every university, every community college, and every program and their requirements are different. Every university basically has a Office of Disability, and the requirements to get accommodations are all different. So it's not like uniformly across the United States or even through the state of Texas that all the requirements are the same, which would be nice. So it starts, making things a little bit complicated when you're considering multiple schools or multiple programs for your loved ones. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So once we get started, and we're talking about college planning or transition planning as we're moving forward with our loved ones, it's really, really important to set realistic expectations thinking about a traditional path versus a non-traditional path. And what I'm talking about is the spirit of comparison. And it starts early. I mean, it starts long before you ever have kids. When you get married, you're at your wedding and somebody's asking when you're going to have kids, and you have a baby and somebody's at the hospital asking when you're going to have another one. We're always comparing and contrasting. Your kids are in kindergarten. Well, when did they learn their ABCs, and when can they write them, and do they recite them, and how high can they count? We're always comparing. But there really is no comparison. They are where they are. They're not behind. They just are where they are. So really looking at this is where your child is sitting at age 18, at age 22, if they're in the 18 plus program in some of the public schools, what is going to be the right fit? Some of our kids aren't there yet. From a maturity perspective, we've got kids that have ADHD, high functioning autism, some of their disabilities. From a maturity level, they're not exactly there yet. Maybe from an educational level, they're behind. So what might be a right fit? Might it be, like with Tawana, with Texas Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce Commission Vocational Rehab, is that, something that to consider initially? Are there transition programs? Trade schools, community college. Of course, there's university degree programs. There could be certificate programs, licenses. You could think about a reduced course load, maybe a child living at home versus on campus. And then there's a variety of other organizations out there that you can partner with for your child to live on campus. And then there are programs that are kind of inclusive for individuals with disability that have live on campus programs as well. So the main thing is just keep an open mind and consider all of the options, because maybe if the option first is to go through vocational rehab and kind of find out what the deficits or the impediments to employment are and try to close the gap on some of those things, maybe they need some additional tutoring or some additional work to get them to the place where they need to be so they can go on to some of these other paths. It's completely okay. It's not a race, although it sometimes feels like one. And so I think, I spend time talking about this because I myself as a parent had to kind of dial this back and kind of think about that, because, you have this plan and you work the plan, and they're going to graduate high school and they're going to go to college, either the university or community college, but what if they aren't there? So giving yourself permission for it to be okay, for them not to be there. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to get there. They're not ever going to get there. But I think it is important for us to remember as parents. So whether you have a neurotypical child or you have a child with disabilities, our kids and their brains are not even fully formed until they're 26 years old. And when these kids have disabilities such as, executive functioning issues and things like that, and their maturity level is behind, it's not that they're not ever going to get there. They're totally going to get there. They just might be slower to the party, as, I like to say. When they get to the party, they're fully dressed and they're already engaged, but they might just get there a little bit late. So some of the things to be thinking about if you've got a kid that is transitioning is, thinking about some of the post-high school options for special needs day and transition programs. There are a lot of programs, across the state. So wherever you might find yourself in the state, that are transition programs. Some are tied directly to the public school system, 18 plus programs. And then there are also programs that are basically private pay and outside of the public school system. So this is just a couple, some of the ones that we're aware about. We do have a whole list of transition and post-high school options that we can put out there as well. These companies are agencies here. We don't work for them and they don't work for us. They're all doing a good job and in the space that they're working. So what we recommend is researching these, looking about, how long is their waiting list, taking a tour. Does your child fit the bill for some of these programs? So if they're not ready to go directly to the community college or directly to the university, or one of these programs, might they be a fit? So look at these early and get yourself on the list, because a lot of these programs have waiting lists. So what we don't want you to do is wait till your child is graduating and then start looking, because the waiting list could be several years long. So you want to be aware of this, and what does it take to get in? How much does it cost? Do they accept waivers? Will your waiver cover some or all of this? Those are all good questions to ask. Some of them accept waivers, some of them are private pay. So just definitely check it all out. Okay, so there's basically 6 traits that we know that students with learning disabilities need to succeed. Basically, there's self-awareness, proactivity, perseverance, goal setting, presence and use of effective social support systems, and emotional coping strategies. So basically, on the university level or the community college level, they're wanting to interact with your student, not you. So, if you have guardianship or partial guardianship or, power of attorney or other things like that, they will work with you. But basically, this is where we're wanting to spend time with our students now and involving them in the process and turning some things over to them, excuse me, as we go along. And so that way they have some skin in the game. It looks like we have a question. Does a child or teen with mental health impairment fall under your disability definitions? Yes. We're seeing a lot of this on a regular basis now, especially with in a heightened manner through COVID. So the mental health impairments, the things that we're seeing on a pretty regular basis is depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, bipolar. Some of those, the last 2 diagnoses, a lot of the mental health professionals shy away from diagnosing because the child's brain isn't fully formed until they're 26. But the mental health impairment basically does affect all areas of learning. If they're in shutdown mode, if they have anxiety, social anxiety, test anxiety, there's so much going on right now. And honestly, there's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from a family that is dealing with this, sometimes alongside other disabilities, and sometimes it's a standalone disability. Also, we're seeing a lot of this in the population with ADHD and autism, whether it's high function, whether it's high functioning, moderate functioning, low functioning, and definitely with the with ADHD, there's a lot of comorbid conditions. So for sure, and that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so accommodations and the Office of Disability on the college level. So whether we're talking about community college or the university, the Office of Disability needs to be on your list. And I suggest that it is really, really high on your list as you're evaluating the various programs that are out there. So the way my list worked was, here are the schools that we might be interested in because they have the degree path that we're interested in. And then the next line on the list was the Office of Disability. So basically we made the long list of schools. Then we started researching and touring and talking to each of the Offices of Disability. These Offices of Disability are not created equally. So I suggest you interview them and ask yourself, do they have the ability to support your child in the way that is needed for them to be successful in the way of accommodations? What kind of software and technology and supports do they have in place at the school? Some schools have a fabulous Office of Disability, and some schools have an Office of Disability that's run by one person, okay? So you're going to want to ask these questions and think about some of the supports that your children have had in place in the public school setting. And what it's going to take. So like, for example, it could be basically all Offices of Disability can do extra time, 50%, 100% more time. They can do note taking. But what if your child needs audiobooks? What if they need voice to text recognition software such as Dragon Speak? There's all kinds of different accommodations that a child might need. So you want to just make sure that your school can provide that. They have the resources to provide it, and they're not expecting you to pay for this out of pocket. Okay, so we were able to eliminate schools right off the bat because their Office of Disability wasn't good. Okay, so the important thing that you should know here is that if you've got a 504 and IEP, they don't transfer over to higher education. So even though you have accommodations in the public school, it would only make sense that they would transfer over to the college, and they don't, okay? So what you need to know about that is each of these schools have different rules on what you're going to have to prove to be able to get accommodations. So you want to start this process early because you don't want your students starting any of these programs with both hands behind their back without accommodations that you know that they need. Most schools are requiring updated testing, neuropsych, learning disability testing within the last 3 to 5 years. There is some wiggle room with this. And again, every school is different. The wiggle room is there's been some wiggle room because of COVID, because it's been harder to get the testing. Some schools are allowing it to be older. Some schools will accept outdated testing if it's accompanied by a letter from your PCP, your psychologist, or your psychiatrist, basically saying the disability remains the same. It hasn't changed. The accommodations necessary are still the same. I see this, this patient and have seen them. I have this long of a history with them. This is the medication that they take, and I am basically saying that these are the accommodations that are necessary. So before you go out and spend $3,500 or $5,000 on updated testing, just know that they might accept a letter. So you might want to ask the Office of Disability if they will do that. So where do you get this testing? So number one, a lot of the psychologist or psychiatrist offices do testing. So if you have a relationship with one, then they'll do the testing. Some of your public schools are going to be doing the testing. If your student is part of the vocational rehab program initially, when they're doing assessments to find out what the impediments to employment are and what supports are needed, there is quite a bit of testing that happens through vocational rehab. Oftentimes what this looks like, and it's not every time because these programs are designed specifically to your child and their needs, okay? But oftentimes they will do neuropsych testing, and they will also do a vocational evaluation, and that will be paid for by VR. And another place that you may consider testing is your local intellectual disability authority. So each county has a local authority. Harris County, for instance, is the Harris Center. Fort Bend County, for instance, is Texana. There's like Bluebonnet Trails. There's different ones where you have the local intellectual authority. Some people call it a LIDA, some people call it a LIDA, but they also do testing to determine the level of need of future care for your loved one. So as it relates to SAT and ACT, same thing. Your IEPs and your 504s don't transfer to the SAT and the ACT. So if your child is going to the university, most of them require either the SAT or the ACT. Some schools have relaxed this a little bit with COVID. So you're going to want to check with the school specifically and ask what that they need. But basically, you can go to the collegeboard.org for the SAT, and in the search box, type in accommodations or disability accommodations, and it's going to take you to a special page where you can download the request form. It will need to be signed off on by a doctor, and you'll need to send any other additional information such as neuropsych testing or any other learning disability testing that you've had that supports the reason of why you need accommodations. ACT is their own website. They have their own requirements. Same thing, go to their website, type in the search bar accommodations for the ACT. You're going to want to do this early. Sometimes they get backlogged and it takes a while to get the accommodations in place for the SAT and the ACT. So let's talk about this anxiety stuff and this testing anxiety that we see a lot of students have. So first and foremost, I mean, this can feel like madness, this time in your life when you're kind of looking at all of these and you're looking at these programs in the schools and the Office of Disability. It's madness. And SAT and ACT. And then there's the TSI that's not even on this screen, but the Texas Success Initiative. Basically, that's the entrance exam to community college or to the university. And if they pass reading, writing, and math, there's 3 sections, and you can pass one and not the other. But if they pass all 3 sections to the TSI, then that means they can take 4 credit classes on the university or community college level. If they don't pass the TSI, or if they don't pass one section, say for instance, they pass reading and writing and they don't pass math, then basically they're going to have to take a remedial non-credit course at the school to get them up to speed for that. So what I'm saying here is on the anxiety side of the house, if you have a child that freaks out on testing, SAT, and ACT, and really your plans are to go in through the community college, I guess what I'm saying to you is you don't have to do the SAT or the ACT. So if you're transferring from the community college to the university, they're going to accept that TSI. So if you know that's the path that you're going, I would say don't even bother on the SAT or the ACT unless, in fact, you have an academically gifted kid, which we see a lot on the autism spectrum. We see a lot of high-functioning kids that don't have low IQ that may score very, very well on these exams. So if that's your student, I would go ahead and take it because that might mean that they may qualify for some scholarships. Okay, so on the work level, the reasonable accommodation is required if it doesn't pose an undue hardship. Again, the Texas Workforce Solutions, Texas Workforce Commission is going to work with you on this. They have programs available for job coaches and other things like that, and all kinds of support and training in place for kids with disabilities to get them kind of work ready, if you will. So in the middle of this, we talk about, do you have a power of attorney? And it seems like a random place to have this, do you have a power of attorney? But it's a good conversation to have here because you've been their caregiver, their guardian, their parent prior to them turning 18. So when we have a child that has turned 18, whether they're neurotypical or neurodiverse, you may want to consider having a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney for all kids that you're sending off to college. It's just a good idea. But on top of the power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney, these schools have something called a FERPA. FERPA. And basically, this is something that needs to be signed by your student that is going to allow you to talk to the university or the community college on behalf of your student. If the FERPA is not signed and it is not in place, the school will not talk to you. And they don't care that you're paying the tuition. Welcome to everybody else's world that they're paying the tuition. Parents feel mad. You let me pay the tuition, but when I call to ask a question, you won't tell me anything. So the FERPA is something, at the very least, I would say the first year of school, you definitely want to have in place. I see a lot of families have it in for all 4 years. Basically, if the FERPA is not in place, you're not going to see grades. You're not going to know anything. You're going to be in the blind other than getting the bill for tuition. So just so you know that. Okay, so we do have a question that says, who do we contact at workforce? I guess that's the workforce commissions. I'm not getting any help from them from repeated calls. And I don't know which area you're in, but we do have a lady by the name of Marilyn Gilbreth, and I don't know if you've been reaching out to her, but she is kind of like the community liaison. We'll put you in touch with somebody in your local area. So if you want to reach out, we can put you in touch with her. I would say stay persistent. Don't give up. I have heard people in the past that have given up on VR or Texas Workforce Solutions because of high turnover rate of employees, or they're not getting called back, or they had a counselor that left and they couldn't get anything, so they threw their hands up in the air and they gave up. So don't give up. People like Maryland have been put in place all across the state of Texas to close some of these gaps. They were aware of some of the issues that were happening, and they've been working really, really hard to close the gaps on that. So reach out and we'll put you in touch with her. Okay. So in-state educational options post-high school, this is a short list. Following this presentation, we do have, I think it's a 6-page list that kind of explains some of the different programs that are out there, where they're at, who the contact is for them. And we're going to attach that PDF to the email that we're going to send out following this, this presentation today. So here's a list of schools that, for whatever reason, again, we don't work for them, they don't work for us, but that we are aware of some of the programs that they have out there that we've heard some success stories from. These places may be a community college, it may be a university, it might be a educational institute, like for instance, non-Parel. But basically there's programs out there. They either have a good office of disability or a combined good office of disability and good programs out there. But what you need to know is that on these programs, they're all different. Some of them are certificate programs, some of them are degree programs, some are license programs. So you want to research these carefully for what you're looking for your student. And you want to do this early, because some of them you think, well, just because it's at UT that that it just has unlimited enrollment. And some of these programs may only have 4 slots for the entire state of Texas. Some of them have more, but a lot of them don't have a ton. So the early bird gets the worm in this example. So if you're really interested in a program, so you're going to want to look at it carefully. So Tawana made a note here that says there is a difference in workforce solutions and vocational rehab, and that is something that is very true. So there are multiple programs out there with different sources of funding. So the Workforce Commission is going to be the vocational rehab, and the Workforce Solution is going to be the pre-ETS and the Summer Earn and Learn and some of the other programs. But either way, there is basically a student navigator at your public schools that is designed to work with you and connect you with these services. And if you're not having luck with those connector pieces, you know, you can reach out to Tawana directly. Tawana, if you'll put your contact information in the chat box as well, I think that will be helpful, and they can kind of connect you with the different services that you might be eligible for and maybe consider. We have people that work with both Texas Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce Commission. So, and your student might fall into both categories for those particular reasons. The Summer Earn and Learn program is a pretty good program. The kids get $10 an hour, and they get good hours, and they're placed in a good, basically a good job. There's just a lot of program and a lot of services, a lot of training, again, that's designed to close the gap on these types of things. Okay, so Tawana's got her contact information in the chat box, and she says she can also help you find your specific counselor in your area. So if you're having an issue with that, you might want to reach out to her as well. Okay. So out-of-state educational options post-high school. So basically, this is the only directory of its kind. It's on ThinkCollege.net, and it features 309 colleges and universities that offer post-secondary education programs for students with intellectual disabilities. Now, when I go to this website, so this website is good, and I don't know if these schools have to pay to be on the website or how they actually get there, but I'm also aware of a lot of other programs that are not out there. And as far as the way that they rank the schools, I don't know if I really don't know how it works, like if the schools are ranked because they're truly the best, or one school is rated higher than the other because they pay more to be on their website. I'm not really sure how that works, but you might want to be aware of those types of things or arrangements and things like that. But this is a good website, and it's a good place to start if you're thinking about or considering programs that are out of state. Basically, on the last slide, we were mainly talking about programs that are in state. We talked to a lot of parents that are fearful. I mean, especially if we're talking about kids that are immature for their age or have serious mental health issues or things like that. A lot of parents are not really that interested in sending their kids out of state, but we have some that are, and there are plenty of great programs that are out of state. So don't close the door on that. And a lot of these programs are very inclusive and have this supported housing and things like that, where they're learning some of the life skills and independent living skills along the way while they're attending classes. This lady, Jody Glau, she is an independent educational consultant. We actually do have a webinar at the end of the month. I think it's the last Tuesday of the month. I run the ADHD support group for Fort Bend, but we serve all across the state. But she's going to be our speaker the last Tuesday of the month. She's the founder of Custom College Consulting, and she specializes in working with students with learning challenges and disabilities. She's real smart. She has toured these schools all across the country. So when she meets with a family and she understands what the shortcomings are, what the issues are, what the disability is, she's going to be able to better direct you. So if you're saying, I don't even know what to put on the list right now, because I think when we first started, we were feeling that way. why should I have a particular school or another on the list, or who shouldn't be on the list? We didn't necessarily know that, but she's going to help you formulate your list if you don't have one. She is a for-hire service where you pay a consulting fee, and I think she has different doors, options that you can walk through as far as engaging her services. But I think that webinar at the end of the month is going to be pretty fantastic. So I hope you'll join us for that if this is something. Basically, if you're looking for somebody to lighten the load for you, because this is, kind of more than what you have time to have on your plate to be the be all end all on all of this, you're going to want to look to her. And I would say all of the college consultants are not created equally, and most of them are not focused on kids with disabilities. They have knowledge about disabilities. They have knowledge about offices of disability and things like that. But again, if you've attended any of my webinars in the past, you may have heard me say your situation is specialized. So, for instance, we do special needs planning. There's a lot of financial planners out there. They're not nuanced in special needs. Your situation is specialized, and there's a lot of things that matter. And you're going to want to work with a specialist. That's the same with an attorney. That's the same with a special needs financial planner. And that is the same with a special needs consultant for the universities and colleges as well. Okay. All right, so CLE, what do they do? This is the college living experience, and basically they do have locations across the United States, but the location closest to us is in Brenham. So they basically, there's a community college there, Blinn University, Blinn Community College. So a lot of the students attend Blinn, and they live at the college living experience. And so they do academics and career development, independent living skills, and social development. This is going to be in addition to any of your college costs. This is an all, basically, so you've got the community college, and some of the kids can go to A&M or, whatever their background is. But this is where, if you're wanting your kid to live outside of your home, but they need help and they need some supports, you want them to start learning some of these independent living skills while getting the help or tutoring or whatever else they need out there as well. So you might want to consider this. From a cost perspective, you're probably looking at CLE being about $56,000 a year, give or take a little bit, and then whatever the cost of the college is. So this sometimes can be cost prohibitive for some families, but some other families, this is exactly what they're looking for. Another company that I want to talk about is Bloom Consulting and their Campus Connection program. First of all, if you're taking notes, I want you to just write down to go to Bloom Consulting's website, okay? So they're an independent business, and they have a lot of different supports in place to help your student with disability. They do vocational evaluations, and I mentioned that VR does vocational evaluations. Sometimes these evaluations, they're going to go through Bloom, and VR is going to pay for it, but you can go through them yourself as a private pay client. They have a group home. They have a lot of different programs that they're working on, and they're doing a really good job. But this Campus Connections program, I know for a fact that they've kicked us off at Sam Houston State University. And this is basically a wraparound program designed to support your neurodiverse college student. So if you have a child that, might be going to a university, the cost for this is $1,000 a month, a little bit more affordable than some of the other programs that are out there. But basically, it's a wraparound program, and it's going to, they're going to pair a student with basically a coach, and who's going to mentor and guide and provide navigational support. And this is going to give you as a parent a chance to step back a little bit and let go a little bit and let them explore a little bit more independence with some guidance from a third party as opposed to you. A lot of our teenagers don't like our advice anymore. I don't know, maybe it's just at my house. I kind of laugh about that. But anyway, sometimes when they have a mentor or a coach or another partner, they're more apt to, we could say the same things. You say something and then, this coach says something, and the coach says it and it's the gospel, and you say it and they're like, no. Anyway, costs $1,000 per month. So if you feel like your child has the educational background that they could go to the university, but they need some little extra help and support, this is a program that you might want to consider. But at the very least, Bloom Consulting is awesome. So check out their website and see if there's any other things out there that you want to think about. So here, the Workforce Solutions, we've got Anna Cluth, the Student Hireability Navigator. Her contact information is on there. So this is Workforce Solutions, which is what Tawana represents as well. So we've got the contact information for Anna Cluth, and again, you're going to get this presentation. So this is some of the things that we were talking about. We throw around these things like PREETs, the pre-employment transition services. And then, there's, all kinds of different transition services out there, and we have whole presentations. So we do have a YouTube channel, and we have a lot of presentations out there all surrounding kids with disabilities, but we definitely have whole presentations about Texas Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce Commission and the various programs that are out there. But the basic age that you need to know is age 14 to 22. If your student has a disability, that disability might be an impairment to employment. We're not talking about, okay, my child has mobility issues, but your child might have emotional issues. They might have anger issues. They might go from 0 to 100, and it might be really hard for them not to tell their boss off. They may have, executive functioning issues. They may have time management issues, all kinds of issues that may be an impediment to employment. And some of them you might not even know because you haven't had a vocational evaluation done, okay? But these services are in place. There is state and federal funding available for these programs. And so these services are typically paid for by Texas Workforce Solutions, Texas Workforce Commission, and each of them, they're kind of together, but they're separate, but each of them have different roles that they play in helping your students. So if you're, again, taking notes, the takeaway is if you're not familiar with any of these programs, make it your business to check out these programs. Their websites are good. Their websites will help you also navigate what area you would be tied to, and you can self-refer. So you can refer through the school, but you can also self-refer, through the website as well. Okay. So when it's talking about, when we're talking about college, we also start talking about funding. What about the funding? So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. The FAFSA is available October 1st each year for the following school year. So if you have a child that is a senior in high school that is graduating in May, it is now time, it is open, and you can complete the FAFSA. So what I say is this journey, whether you have a neurodiverse or neurotypical kid, this journey is not for them and them alone. I know we're trying to push these kids towards independence, but what I will say when I went through this with my daughter is it is not a job for them. Basically on the FAFSA, you'll have a login as a parent, the student will have a login as well. I created both for both myself and my student, but the FAFSA isn't something that they can complete. They're going to want to link to your tax returns. They're going to need financial information, income information from you. And so you're going to want to kind of go through this process. They have streamlined it. It has become easier. We can help people with the FAFSA, if they have questions about it or are feeling confused. And there also is an 800 number to call about that as well. So even if you think you make too much money, you need to do the FAFSA, okay? I'm going to say that again. Even if you make too much money. There are a lot of scholarships and things out there that you're going to want to consider. And a lot of them will not even consider your student if you don't complete the FAFSA. So that's why you're going to do it no matter what. There's scholarships, all kinds of scholarships. This is a separate spreadsheet that you're going to want to start and create because just like all the other schools are not the same, all the scholarships are not the same. All the deadlines, when they open up, when they close, and newsflash, this was something that was shocking to me when I went through this with my daughter, is that a lot of these scholarships close December 1st. So your student is a senior in high school and they're going to college next year. The scholarships open and they close by December 1st. So a lot of families are thinking they're going to get on the scholarship train on Christmas break. And while there will still be some scholarships that are open, but a lot of the big ones and a lot of the good ones are going to be gone because they close December 1st, December 15th. So get on this now. Spend some time on the weekends and look. And just because your child, there are scholarships for kids with learning disabilities, disease-based. Of course, there's the academic scholarships and the school-based, sports, music, band-based, but you just really, really want to research this early and know your deadlines. As far as paying for college, we can pay for college out of our 529 college savings plans. There are, you can take basically distributions from Roth IRAs or other retirement accounts for higher education. And we can also pay for school and tutoring out of an ABLE account. You can't pay for tutoring out of 529C, but a lot of our kids do need tutoring. So an ABLE account is a 529A. And if basically if your child's disability started by before age 26, you can have an ABLE account. An ABLE account can have $15,000. You can put $15,000 a year in. It can be put in by anyone, and if it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, you can pay for it out of an ABLE account, and it has similar benefits like the 529s as far as the tax-free and that kind of thing. Again. I don't work for vocational rehab, but as far as Texas Workforce Commission and vocational rehab, they might be able to provide some support if it's in line with the goals, financial support for classes or education or other types of things. If it's in line for the plan, with the plan for the individual to find competitive employment. So just keep in mind that there could be funding. It's not a slam dunk. It is based off of the individual goals established in that employment plan. Okay, so what about scholarships? So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we're going to send you the PDF and you're going to have links to all of these scholarships. So these are some scholarships that we've learned along the way. First things first, you're going to want to check every single school that you're planning on applying for and look at all of their scholarships, because on their financial aid website, they're going to have a list of the scholarships out there that they have, but these are outside of the schools in particular. So one of the things that I want to mention, because some people don't know this, if you have adopted children adopted through the state of Texas, through the DFPS system, your kids go to school for free in the state of Texas. So you may have forgot that. Maybe nobody ever told you that, but you need to look into that if that is you. Now, if you went through a private agency, it doesn't necessarily count, but foster kids, kids that are through the DFPS system can go to college for free in the state of Texas, and I believe it's state schools. Also, a lot of our families, we're working with the Children's Hospital, the local Children's Hospital. Your child life specialist at the specialty clinic that you go to also may have a list of scholarships they're aware of. These might be endowments that people have created specifically for the hospital, specifically for the disease, etc. So you can add to the list that I'm going to share here by asking your child life specialist for that. The Terry Foundation, this is an awesome scholarship that I love to share with people. But the Terry Foundation scholarship, it is basically, it's the single largest provider of private scholarships in the state of Texas. It's for Texas high school graduates. And basically these scholarships are awarded, it's leadership potential, character, scholastic record, and ability and financial need are the reasons. We definitely, we've definitely seen them give these scholarships to kids that didn't necessarily have the financial need, but had the scholastic record or leadership potential, what they're looking for. So let's just say your student isn't athletic, okay, and they're not going to be in the top 10%. And, well, they don't play a musical instrument, so they're not getting a band scholarship. If your kids are younger, they're not seniors, you got a freshman, this goes back to the beginning. Where is your student? Realistic expectations. So the realistic expectations for my student was, we're not getting the top 10. We don't do sports. We don't do music. We don't do any of these things. So I started looking at what scholarships could we qualify. So I started looking for the disease-based scholarships, and I started looking about the leadership and potential. So your kids have a story. They have a disability. What have they done to give back to the community? Get them volunteering. So the Terry Scholarship is really looking at meaningful volunteer hours. My daughter had like over 900 service hours over the 4 years of her high school career, and she volunteered with like 4 organizations. So they're looking for more than I volunteer at church. What is the organization that's near and dear to your heart? I mean, you could see maybe Dream League is some of them. In Fort Bend County, Hope for 3, they have a teen huddle that's awesome. There's the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. They have like a student of the year that a student can run a campaign for. There's all kinds of organizations out there that need our support and need our student support, but get your kids volunteering, because this could be the difference of $100,000 to you if your child gets this scholarship. What you need to know is these are the universities over here that have this scholarship, and you basically have a chance at this scholarship at every single one of the universities. So if this is something that you're hoping to get, apply to the university and for the scholarship at each one of the universities. It's not one application covers all of them. If you have additional questions, definitely go to the website. Consider reaching out to Jody Kosagi, which is a different Jody than Jody Glau earlier, the independent consultant. But this scholarship is indeed awesome, so I do want you to research this. Okay, we have a question here. It says, my son has a traditional 529 plan that was opened after he was born. So before his ASD diagnosis. In general, would it be best to convert to an ABLE account? The answer could be yes or no. So basically in a 529, you're the owner. The parent is the owner, the student is the beneficiary. And so if we make a distribution out of the 529 directly to the school, it's not going to be counted as income for SSI or Medicaid or things like that. So that's one thing, if we're pretty sure that the kid is going to college. If the kid is not going to college, or we don't know if they're going to go to college, then I would recommend converting it to an ABLE account, and you absolutely can do that, but you can only convert $15,000 a year. And the other thing to know is you cannot have more than $100,000 in an ABLE account before you disqualify for SSI and Medicaid, which you might not be getting right now, but your student will probably qualify for it when they turn 18, because it's based off of their assets, not yours, once they turn 18. So even if you've been denied for SSI in the past, once they turn 18, you're going to want to consider applying again. So again, you can convert, you can put $15,000 a year into an ABLE account. You can convert up to $15,000 a year into an ABLE account from a 529 plan if you so desire. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Here's some different scholarships out there. Again, there's just all kinds of disease-based scholarships. We've just got pages and pages of scholarships that you can look at. And so again, this is not for the faint of heart. You need a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, you're going to want to have the link for the scholarship. You're going to want to know when the application date opens, when it closes, what is required. Some require essays, some don't. Basically, the college applications all require essays. I recommend having your student work on the essays in the summer. So if you have a senior right now, they should have worked on their essays in the summer. You need to get them working on their essays right now. You can get the essay prompts. You can say, what are the essay prompts? There's 3 each year. What are the essay prompts for, college applications for 2021? And you'll find those essay prompts. There are people that you can hire that can review those essays. And parents, please, 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 I know I was tempted myself. Don't write the essay for your kid. They know. The college admissions people are pretty hip to that. So don't do that. Your student really needs to write their essay, but there are programs, there are people out there that you can pay to review the essay and have them make those corrections. So if you don't have a senior, maybe you have a junior, this coming summer is when you're going to want to make them do their essays and get them done, so that way they can start school their senior year in the fall and not be burdened with that, because this is a lot. This is a lot of weekends. This is a lot of applications. And maybe it's just at my house, but there are tears with this. My kid didn't like writing the essays, and she didn't like the person telling her what corrections she needed to make, and she didn't like redoing it or any of those things. So it was hard, but it was totally worth it because her college was fully funded. I mean, she ended up with 9 or 10 scholarships, and she basically gave all of them back but one, because she had one that was so big, she was fully funded that she didn't need. So what I will say is choose wisely. Your effort in this matter and your partnering with your student with this could be the difference of you paying for college or college being free. So be clever, have a plan, work your plan, have your spreadsheet, and really go after this. A lot of these, while there are some that are largely applied for, there are a lot of scholarships out there that nobody knows about, that nobody applies for. So have a strategy. For instance, one of my strategies was, I want to go after the scholarships that have big money, that are going to make a big difference. I wasn't so interested in $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 because some of the $500 scholarships, their application is as long and ridiculous as the ones that are going to fully fund your student for 4 years. So you only have so many hours in the day. So choose wisely. Think about the ones. What's the probability of you getting these scholarships? And I just didn't look at the really, really small ones. I just didn't have enough time to do all of that. Okay, so just lots of links here. So again, we're going to send you this presentation in a PDF, so you'll have these clickable links and you can add them to your spreadsheet relatively easy without research. Some of the books I would say that you should consider, this is kind of an old book, but the Colleges That Changed Lives. There are a lot of schools out there that are really awesome and they really change lives. They really do work with kids effectively, kids that learn differently. And then this 2022 FISC Guide to College, this is another one that I would recommend. And these are also books that you can just order off of Amazon. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things. We're kind of coming towards the end of our presentation today. As I mentioned before, Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We talked about that we put webinars out on a regular basis. Basically, these are things that should be on your special needs planning radar. If you have a loved one with a disability, including a mental health disability, these are some of the things that should be on your radar. On our YouTube channel, we have links to presentations. So we hit the highlights on some of the things, but we have entire presentations on the specific topics that you see on the screen. So we can so you can take a deeper dive, or you can also look for our additional presentations coming up. We have presentations literally each and every week. So we hope you'll join us again for that. I'd like to take a moment just to say, meet our team here. It's important for me to say that this is not Allison, Schaberg and Company. Consolidated Planning Group, we work on a collaborative team. So whether you get myself, Jeff, Michelle, Andy, Meredith, Dalen, or Jessica, who is not pictured here, we work very collaboratively when it comes to planning and helping you take the right steps that you need to take, and not have, avoid some of the landmines that are along the way that might mess things up from a future benefit perspective for your student or loved one. We always do a free consultation. So if you have unique needs or you want to talk about your unique situation, you can reach out and schedule a personalized consultation with us. We are nationally certified as Social Security advisors. We have some specialized software that really helps a family determine if and when and how to pull the trigger from a Social Security perspective. We also go deeper and wider with SSI and Medicaid. There's a lot of different components to Social Security, and those things matter because if you have a child who their disability started prior to age 22, they have the ability for childhood disability benefits under a parent's record when you retire or you become disabled. So we're able to kind of help you determine that. If you have a child that may or may not, and maybe the jury is still out, that may need care for the rest of their life, not just yours, we really help families come up with a future care cost estimate and kind of talk through what does that look like. And this is a big deal because in retirement, we're going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. But if we have a child that might need care for the rest of their life, we got to plan accordingly. And the sooner we get going on that, the better. So we can definitely help you with all of that. So feel free to reach out to us in the future. We are, happy to help any way that we can. And we're happy that you joined us today for this presentation. We hope that you will join us again. If you have any additional questions, if you could put them in the chat box right now. And also, you can also feel free to email any additional questions that you have as well. I have somebody that has their hand raised. First name starts with a B. I don't know if you have a question, if you want to put it in the chat box. Sometimes we accidentally hit some of these keys. Okay. All right. For right now, I don't have any additional questions. So be on the lookout for our email today with the PDF of our slides. We're also going to send a PDF of a list of additional schools and links for schools that might be a good fit for your student. It's been a pleasure being with you here today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks so much. Take care.